Wendover Productions is explaining to us how our world works, from travel, economics to geography, and with such high quality content, it definitely takes a team to put all of this amazing content together. And from that team, I am talking today with Alexander Willard, a former teacher who pursued his dream of being an editor, who will explain to us the importance of getting out of your own way and just taking a leap of faith.
This could be a fun thing that you do in your free time after you're done with like whatever big job you have, right? Like my whole family was in the medical field, and so it was a break from norm. I would rather take the chance and push this direction than do anything that would feel unfulfilling.
And you said that you started like 4 years ago. How did that even come about? Like, was there like a job posting? Did you already know someone on the team? You know, how did you find your foot into this opportunity?
I had like a whole life before getting into editing. Originally, I was teaching in rural Colorado, and then I worked for a nonprofit in the valley that we're currently in, the Roaring Fork Valley. I spent some time in Korea, and then after the pandemic, I came back and I was living at home in Ohio. And I was like, how do I get out of this situation? I didn't have a job and everything was shutting down. And then I just started scrolling Indeed. Just came across this posting by this small company called Wendover Productions, and they were actually looking for a writer. But I applied anyways, and they flew me out and just met Sam and Adam from Half As Interesting at the time. Interviewed, got the job. So it was like I cold emailed them. Like it wasn't anything like special. And then got lucky.
So then before even getting then the job, were you already doing editing as like a hobby, or even how did you even start doing your editing?
So when I was in Ohio State, I was studying printmaking, and part of our curriculum was to take like a slew of different creative classes, and one of them happened to be like digital media, digital art. And so I got introduced to the Adobe suite through that. Like I had access to all these like really cool computers that I couldn't afford, and all of these programs that I couldn't otherwise afford at the time. I mean, I was broke. I was working at a bar, and like I pretty much could afford food, but I would like live in this little studio and work on my little side project animations. And so yeah, for the longest time it was a hobby that I just kept like plugging at, and then over time just built up a small portfolio and sent it off to Sam, and it was good enough. And I think that's like the main takeaway is like your best at the time is good enough generally. So like don't get in your own way.
Which I do like, because I don't know if you know much about even like my history with Tom. So for those of you that don't know, I do work with Thomas Frank. We have 2 channels that we work on. We have a new app in development. And now that I'm a part of a lot more things, if you told me 6 years ago that this would have happened, I wouldn't have believed it either. And the reason is because even when I wanted to apply to work with Tom, I wasn't even qualified technically. Like I didn't know the Adobe suite. I didn't know a lot of what it was that he was asking really, but I still had a lot of years of editing experience under my belt. It was just more the specifics of what he was asking. But I decided to try anyway. And I didn't lie when I say that I'm willing to learn and I want to learn. And he saw that in me. And it was just that one specific thing that put me, that put me in front of like all the other people that were applying. So I agree with you. I may not even been the most qualified person, but Tom saw something different. And I wouldn't have known that had I not just taken that chance. So I think that's a good testament that like you said, don't stand in your own way.
Yeah, and I also think that the big thing is if you can show that you're capable of learning on your own. Like I mean, that was the big thing that I did. Like I really didn't have too much formal training in it. Like I learned a lot of it on my own. But if you're capable of learning small skills on your own, if you can do that, you're coachable. And I think that's what most companies and creators are actually looking for is like someone that can learn, can apply what they learn, can learn more. Like it's really it's really your ability to absorb information. And if you can use it in a practical way, effectively and efficiently, then that's really that's the main takeaway. It's like you don't have to be this mastermind editor, this mastermind animator. If you can get the job done and you know what you're doing enough, it's probably good enough.
When I first started doing this, I did have a lot of like support from certain family members, but even some of my friends and family didn't either fully understand what I was trying to do. Especially where I come from, there's just not a lot of people who are into the YouTube space the way I was, as well as just like production in general. But for the few people that did support me, they may not have fully understood what I wanted, but their support meant the world. So I'm just curious to know, did you have any situations like that when you first started editing, or even when you wanted to pursue this job with Sam?
Yeah, when I was younger, I was like always really into like documentary film and making home movies and doing like the dumb thing with your friend. And my parents were always really supportive of that. Like they got me, I think like my first camera was it was like the Intel Play. It was like this crappy plastic camera, like in the early 2000s that me and my brother and neighbors would use. So like there was support in a sense, but like it always was more of like, this could be a fun thing that you do in your free time after you're done with like whatever big job you have, right? Like my whole family was in the medical field, and so it was a break from norm for sure, and that was a hard barrier to get over. But once I stuck to my guns and I was like, I'm betting on myself, I'm doing this. Like I would rather take the chance and push this direction than do anything that would feel unfulfilling. I think if you get a little bit of traction, people are a lot more receptive than if you're like in this vacuum where you want to do the thing, but you don't quite know how to get there. Like once I finally got this job and proved that I could support myself doing something creative, then it's like, that's so cool. Like we always knew you could do it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I know that there's probably reasons why I felt I didn't have as much support myself. But at the same time, I'll admit, like, I struggled so much even getting any opportunities because I was figuring it out myself. Like, no one understood how to get anywhere close to where I wanted to be. So I don't blame a lot of the like friends and family that I had, but it's just those occasional times where like I know they said something behind my back, and whether they thought it was funny or not, I'm like, that hurts. Like I would have rather had some support than just get jokes thrown at me, you know?
Oh yeah. If you're the only one doing the thing that you're doing, it's just difficult to understand. You're the first editor that I've really spoken to outside of this small circle of people that I work with. And yeah, going for advice from anyone, whether it's family or friends, like it's just, you have to be comfortable being independent.
I think independence is a lot that goes into this because you have to vouch for yourself and you have to be your own everything, really, especially if you're freelancing and you don't have like someone else to do a lot of this for you. But leading then from the hobby to now getting your job here at Wendover, could we know a little bit about your everyday then? Like, what's a typical workday look for you guys, or at least specifically you, in what it is that you do?
Yeah, generally we just go in on Mondays. We have an all hands meeting. So that's Sam, myself, Tristan, who's the writer for Wendover. There's Christine, who is like the production manager, office manager. Then we have Corinne, who's a writer for Wendover and some of the smaller projects. And so that's like our in-house staff. And then we have Adam from Half as Interesting and Jetlag the Game. We have Ben from Half as Interesting, Jetlag the Game. And then we have Amy, who's also a writer for Half as Interesting currently. And then so we all get together, talk about our goals, talk about what this week's going to hold, talk about the different projects going on, talk about schedule, like typical office stuff. So if it's a production week for myself, we have the script will come in like on Monday or Tuesday, block that out, research for sourcing footage, then communicating with the studio side of things, putting that together. Like I work with a lot of people, but I'm like the only one in the office that's doing production. So I'm kind of like my own team within the office. Like everyone kind of bounces things off of each other, but we all work really independently.
Well, since you guys then have like a studio space or office space that you share, do you guys then treat this kind of like a 9 to 5? Like, do you guys have certain hours you try to hit, or is it just kind of if you get the work done for the day, you're good to go? Like, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we work at a pretty fast clip with a lot of these productions. So on my end, generally, like I could have a bit of a longer day, but we try to keep it from 9 to 5 for the most part. And then we also have a 4-day week, which is like
Oh,
super
what?
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wait, how does that work then? I didn't even know you guys did that.
We get at it. Yeah, we have to work like, yeah, we have to be efficient. Like we're not burning time really. So there isn't like a whole lot of like mingling or like hanging out at the water cooler, so to speak.
No, that's cool. Even for us though, like with us in the team that we have, since usually here at the studio that you see on this recording, it's usually just Tom and I that come to the studio because everyone else is like elsewhere in the world. But given that I'm the only editor, but then I'm also really the only person like yourself doing production, I am really just normally the only one here at the studio unless Tom comes in to record or he just feels like working here. Because if not, he could work from home. And even though technically I could as well, it's not as easy just for me specifically because we have all of our stuff in a server. So it just makes much more sense for me, even though the server's been giving me a lot of issues lately. It makes more sense for me to do everything here because then everything I need is just in one spot already. And if I want to work from home, I gotta like throw files on Frame or Google Drive. And if Tom wants to see it or open a project for whatever reason, I got to make sure everything is properly organized so he can open it. And it's just, we're not fully there yet, but we are looking for a way to do that because we might end up moving. And if we do that, we're going to have to work remotely. So now we got to kind of restructure our kind of just how we organize everything. But when you
Yeah.
work from home, do you kind of do what I just said too, like Google Drive or Dropbox, or how do you do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we use Dropbox and Frame for review as well. So we have the internal Wendover Dropbox, and then we also, I work I work side by side with a lot of other remote workers. So, we have the Nebula slash Standard Studios Dropbox, which is where all of the audio files come through, all of the animations come through, anything for like ad reads and like all of those things. So everything is nested within one space. We just don't have like a physical server. It's everything's in the cloud.
I mean, that's kind of the trajectory of what we got to do now in case we do end up moving, just because we won't have studio space, meaning I won't have access to the server all the time. But I will say the reason we did use a server is because we just have so many big files now, and all these things just add up. And if we have to consistently keep waiting for like the cloud or our internet speeds, especially to catch up, we're just like, you know what? It's just Tom and I anyway doing this. So let's just get a server and just keep everything in there, you know?
I think that's the difference between like what your channel does and what we do. Like a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the footage that I'm working with at most is probably like a 5 GB file that I could download from Reuters or Getty or whoever really. Whereas you guys are like in-house production. We're kind of like doing collage and found footage. And if anything, like the the highest quality footage we use is for Jetlag, which is just like iPhone stuff. So it really depends on the type and style of project you're doing, and yeah, if you have like raw files or these massive 5 TB hard drives you need to upload them, yeah, it's a lot less realistic if you're using a cloud service and not just like doing a lightning line to a server or something like that.
Right. And you know what? Just because you brought it up, I am curious. Do you work on anything for Jetlag as well? Just because I know that's like the most popular thing, or at least to my assumption, it's like one of the biggest things you guys work on.
I worked on the first 2 seasons doing like the assembly edits, but a lot of it is really handled by Adam and Ben. And then there's also the in-house people. Like I'm not as familiar with it. I touched on it a bit, but it wasn't like any creative decision. It was more of like, okay, the Mogurts have to go here. This is where the animations have to go. This is, if you could correct these colors here, that'd be great. But it was more of like manual labor than anything creative.
Kind of like a little bit of grunt work, as we would kind of call it, I guess.
But I was okay with it. I mean, it's a cool show. It's fun.
Aside from Jetlag, then, all right, you know what? Even outside, then, let's say of Wendover, have you done any freelancing or anything outside of this that you've also gained more experience from?
I mean, a lot of the stuff that I do is personal projects. I try not to add too much more to my plate other than the stuff that I would like to be doing. In terms of like work-life balance, like I'll have a couple of hours to maybe mess around and do some animations or work on a friend's project. Like my buddies, they're in this local band called Carp, and I've been working on a little music video for them. And it's nice to like, I'm not getting paid to do it. I don't want money for it. But like, if I want to put like 3 or 4 hours in over a weekend and tweak some things and and play around, then that's fun. But professionally, this is my experience as of now.
I still think that's great. And especially in the fact that you can take some side work and not feel the need to charge for it. You know, the passion projects are a thing. And even though we probably work full time or even more than full time, you know, there's still those projects that every now and then will come where you're just kind of more excited to do it than anything else, even if it comes to like finances.
I mean, I get to work on the skills that I want to work on. Like, if you're not getting paid, that's kind of your payment. Like, you get to be like, okay, well, this is how I want it to be. You're not paying me to do this, so this is what you're going to get. In some sense, like, yeah, you can master some of the smaller skills that you might not have.
Now, I do want to quickly touch on something that we touched on a little bit before. You had mentioned though that well, I believe you said that like I'm the only editor so far you've met that's a little bit of on the outside of the island, so to speak, of where you work at.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, networking and making friends is like so paramount to like the job. Like I think the better friendships and relationships you have with people, especially those in your field, not just for your career, but I think even just for your mental state is really good. So I just out of curiosity, is it just more because you're more introverted, or are you just so busy you don't reach out a lot, or like how do you feel about like just trying to meet more people in the space?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely a combination of both of those things. I'm an extroverted introvert, but not really. I'm mainly introverted. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely get a lot of my like energy, spiritual energy, however you want to call it. I get that from spending time with myself, having time to reflect. But that being said, it can go very far in the wrong direction. So like reaching out and making time for people other than your MacBook is incredibly important, because that keeps you grounded, and real life experience, I mean, just frankly helps with whatever you do, whether you're an editor or you're a teacher or you're in sales or you're a bartender. I guess bartending is entirely social. So,
Right. Always surrounded by people wanting drinks.
Yeah. But to really drill down into the question, yeah, I don't have too many connections outside of the Wendover team and the Nebula staff. But that being said, it is a pretty big team. But a lot of the time I am fielding stuff myself and figuring it out on my own. And so I think that's like the big benefit of growing your network is you can have a mentor. You can have people that are looking out for you in your best interest if you don't have like proper context to scheduling, like how much time you're putting in, what you're getting paid, and then also like new opportunities as well. So the bigger your network is, the less in a corner you'll be, which is why I'm starting to want to grow it myself.
Yeah, definitely. I made it a point 2 years ago to start really honing in on this. A part of it is for my own mental health. Like, given that, again, I'm the only one that's really doing the production with Tom, and Tom can, you know, if he wants to work from home, then usually I'm just in the studio by myself. And being an introvert, I'm good with that. It's nothing different for me. But at the same time, I can't deny that I don't get depressed every now and then because I don't have someone to just crack a joke with, even if it's just like lunchtime and I'm just sitting there listening to music or watching a video during my eating. I have no one to bounce anything off of, and sometimes I need that. Like I am someone that really likes collaboration, and given that I work in a collaborative field but don't have someone to collaborate at least in person sometimes, you know, it does take a toll on me. Like, do you ever feel that as well?
I would say yes, but our setup is a little bit different. Like, even though I am the only editor and in the office, like we do have all of the writers, so like it's not entirely solo. But yeah, I think I would be in a much different position right now in terms of like my ability if I were working with someone who's been doing it much longer than myself, or someone more talented than myself. You know, like it gets pretty old trying to learn things on your own, like whether that's from a textbook or going through YouTube videos. Not that that's like a bad way to learn, because I think that's just the new way to do things in a lot of ways, but getting to apprentice under someone would be really sweet, I think.
Yeah, that's how I even saw Tom when I first started working with him. Like, I wanted to make sure I did right by him, but he also just knew so much more than I did, where I just wanted to take in as much as I can, especially with him. He's just a unique guy. His brain is like a sponge. I don't know how he does a lot of the learning that he does.
I mean, pretty much every creator that I've ever met is like, they're incredibly smart people. Like, I think they make it look easy. And this isn't to like kiss anyone's butt, but like, I have met the smartest people that I know through this career. Honestly, the smartest and most driven. It's pretty impressive.
Same. And I'm not saying this to even boast up myself here, but now that I've been fortunate to make friends, even in both Hollywood and then even people such as yourselves in other like creator teams, it has opened my eyes to like just how much I don't know, how much more learning I can do, but
Oh
then
yeah.
ultimately just how smart a lot of us really are in this space. Like we're driven, we're there to like improve and help each other. And this is why again I'm making a point to reach out. Like even for those that don't know this, I reached out to Alex just purely from his website. Like I originally messaged Sam because I happen to know Sam through work, but I found you through your website, and I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I didn't know this guy existed, and I just want to make a friend. And whether Alex you responded or not, I was gonna respect it because obviously you don't have to respond to me. But I'm glad that you did, and this is just the simplest way I can explain it. Like just reach out, and you'll never know. Maybe you can make a friend.
Oh, for sure. I think we work alone a lot of the time, and having anyone like say, "Hey, I like what you do," like that's yeah. I mean, it means a lot. Frankly, like it's one thing to get comments on a video; it's another thing to like have likes. And I mean, really appreciative of that, by the way. But like having someone doing the thing that you're doing, or wanting to do the thing you're doing, or someone that's ahead of you in whatever way, and they're reaching out to talk to you as a peer. I mean, that's I thought it was really cool, and I really appreciate it. So anyone out there, like, feel free to visit it. I'm sure Tony could put a link to it in the description, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about it. So reach out.
And for people that are up and coming, like I've had some people ask for advice, of course, but I can't respond to everybody, especially not with the amount of work I have to do, quite frankly. But I still make it a point to try to give as much good information as I can. So, just out of curiosity, do you have any like advice or any life lessons you learned throughout your career thus far, especially into like how to get started in this?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is to first start. Like if you want to do something, just make an effort to take small steps. Small steps can turn into big steps, as cliche as that sounds. But you really do have to bet on yourself and have a bit of a self-starter mentality. This is a pretty democratic system in that like anyone can do it if you have the time to do it, and quality will get recognized eventually. It took me like from the time that I started using Adobe stuff and like really wanting to do documentary style work. I mean, it took like 10 years of grinding. And then but what I didn't realize was like I wasn't asking for opportunity. Like you really have to get out there and cold email people, call people, go visit, I don't know, your local news station maybe. I don't know what it is, but you have to create an opportunity, and the only way to do that is through connection and community. And I mean, similar to Tony. So Tony cold emailed me. I cold emailed Sam. Like that can lead to huge things if you just take the initiative.
Now, in a cold email though, I do believe there are some do's and don'ts. Like I don't mean to obviously offend anyone, but it's just the truth. Like I really don't like when I get messages that are like, "Yo," or "Hey brother," or what have you. It's just I personally like to keep things a little bit more professional because that's how I want people to take me as. Like I am a professional, but I am reaching out to make a friend, but I still want to be respectful. So I always feel like if you're going to cold email someone, like at least know who you're talking to, do a little bit of research prior. But ultimately, please don't even like copy and paste the same email that you would have sent someone else. Just because, like, do you really care then to take the time to personalize the message, or are you just going to, spam 1,000 emails and hope that at least one person gets back?
Yeah, and on that note, like people talk. Frankly, like a lot of the like if you're say you cold emailed Wendover, like he Sam has connections with everyone within the edutainment sphere. So like if you were interested in working with real life lore or something, I don't know, like they talk, and so if they all get the same email, they'll know. On top of that, like it wasn't Like there was a job posting. It wasn't just like out of the blue, frankly. So that's part of it too. There was a position open for a staff writer back in 2020. So I applied and then I emailed him. I was like, hey, we want to let you know I applied to this position through your company. I had no idea that it was like one person. Frank, I thought it was like more of like a small production house. But yeah, it wasn't like I wasn't trying to have a conversation. There was like a goal in mind. I was like, this is what I do. This is what I can do. Would love an opportunity to interview at the least. And yeah, it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, with Thomas, his job posting was like on his website, I believe, and my friend emailed me that like one my best friend Natalie was the one that was like, "Oh, hey, this guy I like to watch is hiring," and that's basically how it came to be as well. But nothing beats at least like talking. Like that's always where I try to steer things immediately. Is like you're down for like a quick 20-minute chat, and it's just because I feel like I do better talking as I do email. Even though I'm introverted, I would much rather have a genuine conversation rather than just hope my writing and my sincereness comes out in the email. But that's just
Oh, for
my
sure.
own quirk.
Yeah, and if someone doesn't get back to you, it really isn't a matter. Like I think you were touching on this before. It's really not even a matter of like that they don't want to. A lot of the times, their schedules are so packed with like work, meetings, travel, and then having time for themselves. If they're not willing to sit down for like a 10-minute conversation, it might not be that they don't want to talk to you. It's just that like that 10 minutes is so valuable in their day that they like can't. Which is why I think it's important to reach out to the smaller players within the company, like myself or like a writer, maybe maybe even like an HR person at like a Nebula style company. Like there are avenues that aren't necessarily just the figurehead of the company.
Even just us talking could have led to like Sam being more happy that I know more of the team. Then he'll be like, "Hey, I know Tony's busy, but if there's ever something he wants to do, we have something." Like, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but the point is, you never know what could, even just in meeting some of the members. Now, really quick though, because we are a little on this, I am curious, like, how important to you is your personal work-life balance, and how do you manage it? Because like I am doing my best, but I'll be honest, I am not the best at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the thing that I really want to be doing all of the time. So my problem is creating hard ins and hard outs for myself because it's really easy to get caught up in a project that like it just like the momentum starts and you're like, I want to finish this right now, or like you have this creative idea within it that you know is going to take way longer than it should, but you for whatever reason you feel compelled to do it. So yeah, so create a hard in and a hard out where like regardless of what's going on, you give yourself time to walk away and go for a walk or make yourself lunch or make yourself dinner or call your parents or call your girlfriend or call your wife, like whatever it is. And also using time trackers has been really helpful. For the first like 2-3 years, I wasn't tracking my time. So I had like no gauge of like I had an idea of what I was spending my time doing, but I really didn't have like that hard data as to like, okay, this is how much time I'm spending on Wendover projects. This is how much time I'm spending in meetings. This is how much time I'm spending researching footage. Like the stricter that you are with your time, the more you'll realize like where you're putting too much time in or where you're burning too much time. Like I can't stress it enough. Say like, I'm going to start now and I'm going to end now. And what I get done is what I get done, and do your best to get as much done as you can.
Totally agree, man. And that's exactly what I am struggling with because whether it comes to the relationships I have with people close to me, and then just like even just friends or what have you, like my problem is not only do I work full time already and have enough work to do that keeps me busy all day, pretty much every day if I chose to, it's also just I have my own personal projects and I have my own little goals. Like this podcast or whatever I want to call this is one of those. And it's because I think it is important to have these conversations with people doing this job because I want to do greater good for the community or someone who was me 14 years ago or 15 years ago when I first got into editing, but didn't even know what questions to ask or what it is that I do and don't know. And because of the sacrifice that I have to make for that, I have to remember like there still needs to be a cutoff point, which usually for me is like 7 p.m., which means I am working from almost like 12 hours a day every day, even sometimes weekends, which is not good.
Yeah.
But I luckily have the support from the people closest to me to know that even though they sometimes are annoyed that I'm going to work, they understand the goal that I have and the vision I have. But I also have to make sure that in reverse, if I say I will be done at 7, I better be done at 7, or else now I'm breaking
Yeah.
promises that I don't want to break.
Yeah. On top of that, like it's good to like create obligations for yourself outside of it. So like maybe the hard out isn't like good enough. Maybe you should like join a gym or join a book club or like set something up at the end of the day that you can't miss. And then I think that you'll be much more likely um, to not break those promises to yourself. And you were also saying like working past like 7 o'clock. I've found that like if I work past when the sun goes down, like it's so much easier for me to put in like another 3 hours after that because for whatever reason, time doesn't feel like it exists. Like the sun isn't moving in the sky, and you're like, you can get into this weird space where you put in like, where like 2 hours just goes by like that because you just don't even realize it.
So, with your work then with Wendover, and then all the experience that you have now, one thing I am curious about, because you guys have such a, I assume like a big team, or even if it's more than like 3 people, to me that's kind of like a big team for a YouTube channel. When it comes to that though, how do you guys handle like feedback or criticism, or like do you guys do rounds of feedback as a team, or is it more just one person doing it? Like how do you guys manage that, and how do you personally deal with that when you get that kind of a feedback?
I used to get quite a lot of it when I first started, but I was learning how these videos flow. I was learning about um, the type of clips that Sam would want. I kind of hit a point where the decisions that I make are a decision that he would have made. So we're kind of like, there aren't too many notes that I get on my edit. A lot of the time, the notes that we're giving out are for like factual accuracy. And a lot of that is within the animations themselves. So we have Tristan, like I said before, we have Sam and myself, and we kind of do like we're like the in-house team for Wendover. But then we also partner with Standard Studios, which is now I think Nebula Studios or just Nebula in general. They've had a couple branding changes, but so we have a whole remote production team that's working on audio and animations, and like they're producing it as well, and like doing ad reads and whatnot and sponsorships. So there's like this whole other slew of people that aren't in the office. And that's what allows us to have such a quick turnaround and high cadence. So like from the time a script starts to the time a script video comes out, that's like only 2 weeks. And for me, that's like 8 working days. And for studios, that's like 10. So we have our producers, Graham and Travis, who we sit down with and have like a pre-production call, and the animators are on that as well, which is Max, Derek, and Sarah. A lot of the notes for them are just like, yeah, this is the correct graph, this is not correct, how do we fix this? So a lot of that just happens on frame and just like back and forth and whatnot. Yeah, and then like if there's issues with audio, we go to like Manny or Donnie. So there's like, I don't know how many people that is, like 15, 10, 15. It's a pretty sizable small company working on any given thing. And a lot of those people have other responsibilities as well, whether they're working on real life lore or any of the slew of creators that they're responsible for working with. But yeah, and then handling it, I just don't take it personally. Like ultimately, I want to make the best video that I can, as does the team. And we're doing that all in service of the audience. So sometimes it can get frustrating, like if you really wanted to do something, or if it's a last minute request, or if there's like a fire drill at the end of it where like you're like, crap, we have to fix this. But other than that, it's like it's all in service to making a higher quality video. And if you can separate yourself from yourself in a way, then it really helps. Because it's not like a direct criticism. It's just like, let's change this thing that you did that might not be like the best that it could be.
So to slowly now start wrapping things up, with all the experience you've had, and just working the jobs that you've had, and then through all the relationships that you developed, can you give the audience, or anyone that, whether they're new or a professional, we're all here to learn something new, or at least would like to. So what is some of the best advice you feel you've ever received? But then also, what's maybe one that maybe you're just like, if we can avoid this, we're probably all better off in general?
From my personal experience, it's really important if you're not doing the thing that you would like to be doing. Like if you're, I don't know, you're a bank teller, but you have this vision to do something else in the future. Just stretch your time horizon. Don't be like, okay, well, I'm 25 now and I'm not doing this thing, so it's never going to happen, which like isn't the case. Like just give yourself a grace period, be forgiving and gentle, and don't like be so self-critical. I mean, that's one area that I've slowly become better at. Don't quit before you've exhausted all resources and opportunity. Like just stretch your time horizon.
How about, can it be something that you wish you never really listened to because maybe that hindered your potential?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of this is just like within myself, right? It's like just the voice that says you're not good enough. Like, don't listen to that. Just go out, and if something doesn't exist that you want to exist, go and create it. And if you're not doing that thing that you want to be doing, you need to start asking people. Have someone tell you no. Have a bunch of people tell you no, because eventually someone might say yes. Like they can. And I mean, that's like what happened for me. I'm a believer in tenacity and patience. If you can figure those two things out and you can get over your self-critical voice, then you can craft a life that you are proud of, regardless of what you're doing.
One of the biggest pieces of advice that I've ever received was when and it is a personal one for me as well, which is that I would consistently, way more than I do now, but like obviously I still subject to this every now and then, which is that I would compare myself way too much to people that are doing and having skills that, technically speaking, I have no business knowing, because it's just not what I'm going to get hired to do, nor is it what I intend to do. But because I would see all these like amazing editors that are working, let's say some are in Hollywood, or some are doing animation films, or some of them are doing really amazing motion graphics, like someone like Ben Marriott, who's someone I admire. Like just because they're in certain positions or they have certain skill sets does not take away from the fact that you still cannot learn enough skills to make a career out of it. So I think one of the biggest things I learned was like, be your biggest supporter, and then also don't ever think you're never good enough. As long as you're putting in the reps every day, you're good enough for something. And I know saying something doesn't really help. Like some people would be like, well, that's very vague. And it's like, it's just because you never know what that something will be unless you nurture that skill or nurture that drive that you have. Yeah. Like I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I didn't think that I had enough skill or enough knowledge now to just have a simple conversation with you. Because back then, if you tried talking to me like 4 years ago, I would have been like, oh, I don't know what to tell you. Or like, oh, my skills aren't good enough to be talking to Alex because he works at Wendover. And it's like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. And like on top of that, like you have no idea how self-critical someone is, that like the Ben Marriotts of the world or the Johnny Harrises of the world. Like you really don't know what's going on internally. Like they might have this amazing product, but they're still also trying to get it somewhere. Like it's never really finished. It's just how you manage your life between achieving goals. It's like, can you appreciate where you're at? And if you can do that, you can stick around and learn anything. Now,
to give you the red carpet now, I would love to really just let anyone find you or know how to find you or see the stuff you worked on. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way to get a hold of you? And then where can we find you? Are you like on social media, or what do you think?
Yeah, I have a pretty small social media footprint. I'm just kind of a private person. It's out of like in just my nature. But yeah, to find any of the work I've done, a lot of it is on the Wendover main channel. We have Extremities, which is still on YouTube, and then we also have some on Nebula streaming service, and then we have Logistics of X, which is also on the Nebula streaming service. So those are the main projects that I've done professionally. Personally, if you want to see any of my like animation reels or like highlight clips or whatnot, I mean, all of that's on my website. There's some like fun little writings that I've done for my travels. I don't really keep too up to date on that anymore, but it's up there, as well as my contact information. So just go to alexanderwillard.com. You can reach out to me there.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you for your time. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know. And then for anyone watching, if you guys have any questions, or maybe if this video does well and you guys would love to hear more from Alex, let me know down in the comment section. We could potentially follow this up in the future. But thanks again for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Tony, thank you for having me on. I don't know if you guys can tell, I've been super nervous. So if you made it this far, thank you for putting up with me fumbling with my words a bit. I'm usually behind the computer screen as opposed to being in front of a camera and a mic. But I hope this was valuable for y'all, and I just really enjoyed talking to you, Tony. So thank you.
Likewise, man. Appreciate it.